You know that picture we all have in our heads of the Americas before 1492? This huge, green, untouched wilderness, kind of like an Eden with just a few small, scattered tribes. But what if that whole picture is just fundamentally wrong? In this explainer, we're going to tear down that myth and show you a lost world of staggering complexity, a world that was thriving long before anyone discovered it. I want you to imagine something. Imagine a world where massive cities, I mean massive, just rise up from the forests. A world with trade routes that stretch for thousands of miles. A world of emperors and scientists where powerful nations are flourishing and they've never even heard of Europe. This isn't some fantasy novel. Because the truth is, America was never discovered. It was already alive. So for centuries, the story we've been told is what historians call the pristine myth. It's this idea that the Americas were basically an empty, untouched wilderness before the Europeans showed up. And look, it's a powerful image, it's even kind of romantic, but it's an image that has completely erased a much more dynamic, human-shaped reality.
And this myth? It was really built on two stereotypes that were convenient but totally wrong. On the one hand, you had the savage, the bloodthirsty barbarian, which was a great excuse to justify conquest. And on the other hand, you had the noble savage, this simple, childlike figure living in perfect harmony with nature. Both of these are extremes, and both of them completely miss the real story, which is that the people who lived here were skilled farmers, visionary architects, and brilliant scientists.
Okay, so first things first, let's completely blow up the biggest part of this myth, the idea of an empty continent. Because the evidence we have now from archaeology, from history, it paints a picture not of emptiness, but of a world that was absolutely teeming with people. Just let this number sink in for a second, 100 million. The high-end estimates from modern researchers suggest that the population of the Americas back in 1491 was somewhere around 100 million people. We are not talking about a few scattered tribes. We're talking about a population on a massive, massive scale. And if you're thinking, okay, 100 million, what does that even mean? Well, get this. The population of Europe at the exact same time was also about 100 million. Yeah, the Americas were just as populated as Europe, maybe even more so. The so-called New World was anything but empty. So where were all these millions of people living? Well, they were concentrated in huge, sophisticated societies all across the hemisphere. Central Mexico alone was one of the most densely populated places on the entire planet, with over 25 million people. The Inca Empire, what they called Tawantinsuyu, ruled over 11 million. And get this, even the Amazon basin, a place we think of as pure wild jungle, was supporting something like 6 million people.
So, okay, if the Americas were home to populations that were rivaling Europe's, that brings up a really big question, right?
I mean, how on earth did they do it? How did they feed millions of people in the high Andes Mountains, in swampy lake beds, and even in the Amazon rainforest? The answer lies in some absolutely breathtaking ingenuity and a deep, deep understanding of their environment. They weren't just living in nature, they were actively shaping it. Okay, for example, take the chinampas in Mesoamerica. To feed the huge city of Tenochtitlan, the Mexica built these incredible artificial islands right on top of the lakes. They were basically floating gardens, these rectangular plots made from layers of mud and plants, creating some of the most fertile and productive farmland you could possibly imagine. Just a brilliant piece of engineering. And then if you go further south into the Amazon, you find another incredible innovation. Terra preta, which means Amazonian dark earths. For the longest time, Europeans just couldn't figure out how large populations could survive where the soil seemed so poor. Well, the secret was that indigenous peoples had been creating their own soil for thousands of years, enriching it with charcoal and organic waste to create this super fertile ground for farming. They also mastered fire. See, what colonists saw as wild, untamed nature was often a carefully managed landscape. Indigenous peoples used frequent, low-intensity fires to clear out the undergrowth, which helped useful plants grow and created open grasslands to attract game animals. This wasn't destruction at all. It was cultivation on a continental scale. All right, so we've got a continent full of people who were masters of the land. Now let's shatter that final piece of the myth, the idea that these were just isolated, disconnected tribes. The Americas before 1492 were a bustling network of empires, cities, and trade routes that crisscrossed the entire hemisphere. Just look at this. This is the Cahokia, the Great Inca Road. It was this massive, massive network of roads and bridges that stretched for thousands of miles through the Andes, which is one of the most challenging landscapes in the world. And this wasn't just a path, it was the backbone of an empire. It allowed armies, messengers, and goods to move with incredible speed. And how do you even manage an empire that vast? Through a marvel of administration. I mean, at the very top, you had the divine emperor, the Sapa Inca. The whole empire was then split into 4 big quarters, called suyu, then divided again into provinces, or saya, all the way down to the basic family unit, the ayu. This incredibly organized system allowed a small group of elites to govern millions of people across a huge territory. And these connections went way beyond just single empires. Archaeologists have found turquoise from what's now the American Southwest in the ruins of ancient cities in Mexico. They've found macaw feathers and cacao from Mesoamerica deep in North America. We are talking about luxury goods moving over 1,200 miles across deserts and mountains. It proves that this was a deeply interconnected world. So here's the bottom line. 1492 wasn't the beginning of history in the Americas. It was an interruption. These were never empty lands. They were home to emperors, civilians, scientists, and philosophers who took Columbus and the Europeans who followed and folded them into their own ancient, complex histories. It wasn't a meeting between a new world and an old one. It was a meeting between 2 old worlds. And that really leaves us with a final lingering thought. When you think about the incredible societies, the massive populations, and the sophisticated ways of life that were lost, what if that interruption never happened? What would the Americas actually look like today?